Order for the Board of Commissioners for Douglas County, Nebraska for Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. Please note that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the Legislative Chamber alongside an automatic external defibrillator. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Borgeson. Commissioner Kavanaugh is absent. Commissioner Fahey. Commissioner Friend.
Here.
Commissioner Morgan.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers. Mr. Chair.
Here. First, we have items A and B. A being the approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, January 6, 2026, and B being a call for a meeting and set Tuesday, January 27th as date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion by Morgan, second by Rogers. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next, we have one resolution item, item C, and we can do that plus adjournment if desired.
Second.
Motion to approve resolution C plus adjournment by Rogers, second by Morgan. Was there anybody that wanted to speak to resolution C? If not, we can vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. That concludes equalization. We'll jump into Board of Commissioners. Roll call.
Commissioner Borgeson. Commissioner Kavanaugh is absent. Commissioner Fahey. Commissioner Friend. Commissioner Morgan.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers. Mr. Chair.
Here. First, we have items 1A and B. A being the approval of the minutes of Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, January 6, 2026. And B being the approval of claims submitted for payment process through Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Morgan, second by Rogers. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda, items A through D. Do I have a motion and a second for discussion?
Second.
Motion to approve by Roger, second by Morgan. Are there any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. We'll go into new business where we have one resolution titled the resolution approving the 2020, should be 2026, there's a little typo there, Quint County legislative priorities. Quint meaning 5, so just for context, these are the 5 biggest counties in Nebraska that have come together to do this joint resolution. Before I read it briefly here, there was a slight cleaning up and revision to be a little bit more clear on that point number 1 that we'll get to here momentarily, that the board had briefly discussed previously. Otherwise, big picture, all the points, including number 1, will model what the 5 counties are doing today. So all 5 counties are approving essentially the substance of this resolution. So can I get a motion and a second for the reading and discussion?
Second.
Motion by Roger, second by Morgan. All right, I'll read it here quickly. It says, whereas the counties of Buffalo, Douglas, Hall, Lancaster, and Sarpy, Nebraska collectively represent the interests of over 1.2 million Nebraskans, constituting over 62% of the population of the state of Nebraska. And whereas the counties deliver essential local government services mandated by the state of Nebraska without state appropriations to support those services, including critical public health, mental health, and public safety services. And whereas, despite dramatically rising inflation, a historically competitive labor market, and exceptional population growth, the county boards of commissioners have prudently managed their property tax levies while continuing to deliver the essential local government services that our growing communities rely on. And whereas tax reform cannot be achieved at the expense of our county's ability to deliver essential local government services that keep Nebraskans healthy and safe. And whereas the counties, in addition to their individual interests and priorities in the Nebraska Legislature's 2026 regular session, have come together on behalf of their collective residents to adopt common legislative priorities. Now, therefore, be it resolved by this Board of County Commissioners, Douglas County, Nebraska, alongside our commissioner colleagues of the counties of Buffalo, Hall, Lancaster, and Sarpy, Nebraska, that the county boards have hereby support the legislature and the governor's efforts to promote the state's health, security, and prosperity by addressing the following pressing issues that are of critical importance to the counties. Number 1, property tax relief. We encourage and support comprehensive property tax relief through thoughtful, systemic reform of tax requests, tax levies, and property valuation that also allows for continued growth and vitality of counties. Cities and counties have already become newly constrained and substantially limited in revenue growth and expenditures by the reforms within LB 34 during the special session, as amended by LB 647 and AM 1202 in 2025. Any new reforms should prioritize the critical importance of a county's ability to deliver essential local government services that keep Nebraskans healthy, safe, and on a continued trajectory for robust economic and population growth. Number 2, utilizing inheritance tax for property tax relief. The counties currently utilize inheritance tax revenue as a dollar-for-dollar property tax relief, supporting essential local government services that otherwise would be paid with property tax revenue. Elimination or reduction of inheritance tax revenues must be balanced by equal and sustainable replacement revenue streams to ensure that the counties can responsibly manage property tax levies while continuing to deliver the critical health and safety services that make Nebraska a preeminent location for families and businesses. Number 3, state tax shifts to counties. The county's property taxpayers collectively bear the burden of tens of millions of dollars in constantly escalating costs of state bureaucracy that the state has shifted to the counties, paying for the salaries and benefits of state personnel and the costs of state office space, utilities, office equipment, and computers. These veiled state property tax levies serve only to conceal the true cost of state government and represent the hidden barrier to real and lasting relief to the county's taxpayers. And be it further resolved that the county boards hereby authorize the county's advocacy teams to pursue the success of legislation consistent with the principles herein throughout the Nebraska Legislature's 2026 regular session, dated this date, 13th of January, 2026. With that, there's a motion and a second for the resolution, and we'll go to discussion with Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I don't think anything in here that all of us couldn't get behind. The idea of property tax relief has been the great white whale of every legislature that I've ever watched in my lifetime. And, you know, sometimes they take 2 steps forward, sometimes they take a step back. I think, you know, the idea of property tax relief is one that we all support. And if we can get that out of this legislature, so much the better. The idea of what we do and the importance of that to the people, I think, can't be overstated. The county is an integral part of health, human services, transportation, economic development, criminal justice, you name it, we do it. And how we do that best and pay for it is always a question that we all struggle with. The sentiments in this resolution, I think, are pretty accurate in terms of what we would like to see. Whether or not we all get what we'd like is always a question. But I don't see anything in here that we wouldn't support. The devil is in the details. We're going to get bills here pretty quick, and we'll have to come back to that. But as far as a first step down that process, which goes on for months now, this is a good one, and I support it.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments or questions from board or public? Go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I got here a few minutes too late, but I'm sort of against this resolution in general. I didn't hear your definition of Quint County, but on this first meeting of the new year and of the 250th year of our republic, I don't think the founding fathers intended for us to have county associations working against the citizens. And then briefly, to answer Mr. Kavanaugh, the best way to provide property relief is to stop the spending on unnecessary programs and 501c3 organizations and national associations dues, that type of thing, county association dues, that kind of thing. Stop the spending, and then you can provide property tax relief. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh?
Thanks. And I appreciate, you know, the idea of property tax relief. My father, who sat here many years ago with Commissioner Morgan, always came home and said, you know, the county board is a creature of the legislature. And as a young child, I always thought, a creature of the legislature? What kind of a creature is that, you know? Is it got 6 legs or 8 legs or whatever? The point is, we do pretty much what they tell us to do. They charge us to do certain things. And what this says is, working together, the state and the local governments, we're trying to make it as effective a system as possible. There's always waste, and we always should try to work to eliminate waste. In my years studying government, the only way that you're going to get property tax relief, eliminate waste as part of that, is new streams of revenue. And I'll give you an example. if the state of Nebraska were to legalize marijuana, there would be a huge new stream of revenue for the property taxpayers of the state of Nebraska. And this isn't just me talking, look around the country. Every state that has a brain in its head is moving towards legalizing marijuana, like we've legalized liquor and cigarettes and other things that you might not want to use. But if you don't use it, you don't pay this tax. I like taxes that I don't have to pay. They're about the only taxes that I like. But we're not going to get there if we're just talking about cutting waste. We need to do both. We need to cut the waste, and we need to shift the revenue stream to new sources of revenue that around the country, you can look at Colorado, look at our neighbors, they are getting hundreds of millions of dollars in new revenue from just this one source. So I leave you with that.
Thank you, Commissioner Kavanaugh. Just as a brief 2 cents, many in Lincoln forget that the county doesn't get sales tax, for example, and is heavily reliant on property taxes, and so our revenue streams are very limited to property tax and a sliver of inheritance tax. So it is difficult to rely so heavily just on that one big basket of property taxes. We'd love to have more diverse revenue streams, definitely, that's for sure. We are also 13% of the actual property tax bill. So for everything that the county does across 22 departments and offices and 2,500 employees, we're just 13% of the tax bill. So we try to do the best we can with the revenues we do have in place, and we are hoping that we can continue to grow Douglas County, the economy, our services to the public and public spaces, et cetera. I mean, we fund, when the state says you got to have a jail, you got to have a sheriff's department, you got to have a county attorney, you got to have a county defender, you got to have all these things, we have to do it because it's state mandated. And so that's really where those tax dollars go, is to meet the need demanded by the state and state law. So we're bound to do those things at the local level. Commissioner Kavanaugh, third round.
Just in kind of conclusion, the waste part of this is exampled here by the biggest source of waste in recent years. One big thing is the empty kids jail down the street, still empty today. A brand new building constructed by this county with property taxes that everybody's paying all the time. Totally unnecessary, not mandated by the state, and empty for years now. So I have worked to try to find, first of all, other solutions before the building was built, and in light of the building being built and being empty, trying to find solutions for its continued drain on our property tax dollars. And that's a challenge. But that's an example of the waste part of this that goes along with the new revenue thing. We have to have a balance here.
Any other comments from board or public?
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I was listening to the resolution, and I'd like clarification what you mean by advocacy teams. That's not a term that I'm familiar with. I know you have like a law department. You have divisions within the county. I mean, this group can be advocates. Does that, when you say advocacy teams, do you include yourselves in it? And then some of the comments about property tax relief. You know, I don't own property, but I do pay rent, so I'm paying for property taxes and my landlord's profits. And I don't. The only benefit I get with that is that I can go home and go to sleep, and that's just fine with me. I was going to make the point about having new revenue streams replace the property tax revenue or receipts, and the legislature and the governor need to have the what do you call it, like the desire to provide those new revenue streams. And there's ways. I don't know if marijuana is the best example, but the user tax, I think that's a good example. The county assessing an increased sales tax, like a 1/4% or 0.5% in the sales tax. I think that's a good source of revenue. But and I had a third point. I think that's it. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And just to answer your question, Luis, I think a more generic term of advocacy teams was used because the slightly smaller counties in the Big Five, Buffalo County and Hall County, they don't have lobbyists, so it'd be more of their staff and board members probably working on the advocacy efforts, so to speak, whereas the larger counties like Sarpy, Lancaster, and Douglas do have a lobbyist combined with our own staff and board members working on these affairs. So just to kind of cover all the counties and their different setups.
In the Quinton group?
Yeah. So Quint would be for the Big Five, but Buffalo and Hall, despite being number 4 and number 5 in the biggest population of counties in Nebraska, they don't have a lobbying team, for example. So it's just a different setup. So we use that more generic term.
A different association.
No, not association. Just they don't have a lobbyist, for example. So
Set up with the county, but you're including
and how
them
they do their
with
advocacy in the
county, with
legislature.
Metropolitan and Lancaster. You know what? Can I continue my comments because I think I had like a minute.
You
or so.
had like 60 seconds left, so go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll also agree with Commissioner Kavanaugh that you guys did provide waste. This group did a few years ago with the setup building the county jail. I'm not against sending kids to detention, but the fact that the county had to put together a nonprofit in order to push the construction, that was a problem. You could have used your own committee. And nonprofits can serve as conduits to support or alleviate government burdens, but there's ways to do that outside of committees and 501c3s. There's other organizations that the IRS revenue or the IRS recognizes as nonprofits, and if you're going to do something like that, intensive work with established organizations that have expertise. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on this resolution? If not, we'll vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. We're going to go to our recognitions and proclamations, Section 5. The first two are for county employees that are retiring. We first want to acknowledge and uplift Gregory Blackmon, who worked for the Douglas County Community Mental Health Center for 8 years. And Gregory, I don't believe, is here today. We also want to recognize county employee Philip Rooney, who worked for the Douglas County Health Department for 18 years, and thank them both for their service to Douglas County and its citizens. So I don't think Philip is here either today, so I'll take a motion for both.
So moved.
Motion by Morgan, second by Rogers. And go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Dan Esch, Douglas County Clerk. I've had a lot of experience over the years with Phil Rooney. Of course, he wasn't the only one passing along information, but he was often the one to pass things along to the clerk's office to share public information. I mean, right when I started my second stint with the county, it was when H1N1 was in full swing, and so I met him on pretty early when I started again. And yeah, I'd probably communicate with him a couple times a year, and he'd provide helpful information for us to share with the residents of Douglas County. I just wanted to thank him for that.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And go ahead, Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to add that to what the clerk said. Phil can't be here. Unfortunately, Phil's health got bad over the years, but I do want to recognize just his efforts for years before we had Leah Baez as our public information officer. He helped us from this end on that realm. And I can't say enough about his work there. He took us through H1N1, Ebola, SCARS, and not to mention COVID in regards to what he did for communication to the public and down the health department. So I want to wish him well in his retirement.
Thank you. All right, we do have a motion and a second for both A and B. Let's vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. For item C, I'll read it here and then pass it to my colleague. It says it is a sympathy resolution recognizing the passing of North Omaha business owner and civil rights leader, Mr. Daniel Markin Goodwin, Sr. And I will pass it to Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll read the resolution and make some comments after that. It says, whereas it was with great sadness that the Douglas County Board of Commissioners learned of the death of the longtime North Omaha barber, business owner, and civil rights leader, Mr. Daniel Markin Goodwin, Sr., who passed away on January 4th at the age of 93. And whereas Mr. Goodwin was born on January 13, 1932 to the parents, the Reverend Joseph and Martha Goodwin, and whereas Mr. Goodwin is survived by his wife of 70 years, Andrea Goodwin, and his children, Daphne Goodwin, Maurice Goodwin, Dr. Melanie Newsom, and Daniel M. Goodwin Jr., along with numerous nieces, nephews, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And whereas most notable, Mr. Goodwin and his wife started Goodwin Spencer's Street Barbershop in 1955, located at 3116 North 24th Street, a mainstay in North Omaha for nearly 65 years and one of the longest operating barbershops in Nebraska. And whereas Mr. Goodwin was a prominent advocate for equality for African Americans during the 50s and 60s, attending the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963, and hosting Mr. Malcolm X as a member of the Citizens Coordinating Committee for Civil Liberties in 1964. And whereas he will be remembered dearly for his love for the Omaha community, his commitment to his family, and his generosity, now therefore be resolved by this board of County Commissioners of Douglas County that this board hereby commemorate the life, contributions, and legacy of Mr. Daniel Markin Goodwin Sr., and hereby formally extend the board's sincerest sympathy to his family, friends, and community. And I would move for approval.
Motion by Rogers, second by Borgeson.
And I'll just note too, there's been a lot of articles noting just what that barbershop meant. It's more now in symbolic commemoration. No one's cutting out of it, but it's one of the two places that, as long as I've been here, people have kind of labeled as Black City Hall. The other one was the old Fair Deal Cafe. And so words probably can't express what Mr. Goodwin's contribution was. He ran for city council, school board a couple of times, probably setting the pace for people like me to be here in this seat. And so with that, I know it's kind of things that come full circle with his attempt at city council and now having his daughter-in-law be a member of the city council sitting in that same district. So with that, I want to add my sympathies to the family and condolences.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers, for bringing that to the board. We join you in expressing our sympathies to the family. Go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Dan Ash, Douglas County Clerk. So one thing, it's funny, how I first learned of Dan Goodwin Sr. was through weightlifting. My brother Bill owned his own gym for several years, and there were various lifting styles of people who did various lifting styles come through competitively. But the power lifters, I had heard them mention his name before. And so that's originally how I heard of him, but I didn't know much about him other than just hearing his name. And then as I started working for the county, to hear this totally different side of him. And so in 2019, they renamed like part of, wasn't 24th, but what's the anyway, right by the barber shop. I think they renamed like a section of that street after him. And I went to it, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I saw his son, and so I told his son this. I'm like, hey, when I first knew of him, it was all because of weightlifting stories. And he's like, oh yeah, Dad never started competitively lifting until he was 68. And I was like, excuse me? And I just assumed this was something he had done, I think he lifted weights, but I just assumed he was competitively lifting like all of his life. And the guy won like 15 or 16 titles in his division in his late 60s and 70s. And so in addition to just the stuff that Commissioner Rogers pointed out, just inspirational guy in terms of it's never too late to get into something. So I just wanted to recognize him for that as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. All right, with that, we do have a motion and a second. We'll vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you again. We'll share these copies, Commissioner Rogers, with you there. And we'll proceed here on our agenda into committees. Under Finance, we have Budget Report as presented. Under Child and Youth Services, we have a Douglas County Youth Center 2025 year-end detention reports. With Dr. Carball, Rondi, and others that will, I'm sure, chime in.
Just your arrows. Good morning, Commissioners. Dr. Abby Carbaugh. I'm here today to present on DCYC for our calendar year 2025 population and our population as of early January. So this first graphic shows our annual admission trends for DCYC since 2007. Over the last 2 years, DCYC has seen a downward trend in both its annual and its monthly admission numbers. In 2025, there were 637 admission events, which is over 100 fewer than where we were in 2024 and over 200 fewer than in 2023. Of the 637 admissions, 67, or around 10%, were for youth charged as adults. 542 youth admitted to DCYC had charges in juvenile court, and the remaining 28 were from other jurisdictions. This graph zooms in a little bit just on those last 3 years to look at a month-by-month basis. So during the month of December 2025, we had 49 youth who were admitted to detention. 3 were charged as adults, 43 were charged in juvenile court, and 3 were from other jurisdictions. When we look at admissions, it's also good to look at the average time to release, or how long youth are spending in detention. This graph again looks at the annual average number of days youth were in detention before their release. For the past 10 years, the length of stay has been on a slight overall upward trend. During 2025, the average time to release was about 69 days, which is similar to where we were in 2024. The 66 youth who were charged as adults that were released in 2025 spent about 207 days in detention, and we had 358 juvenile court youth who were released. They were in DCYC for about 43 days. Again, if we zoom in just on the last 3 years for a monthly basis, we can see that in December 2025, the average time to release across all youth was about 96 days. This is a pretty large increase from where we were in November, but it's largely attributable to the number of youth we had released on adult court charges. So in December, we had 7 youth who were released after spending an average of 307 days in DCYC, and we had 23 juvenile court youth released after about 32 days in detention. Now, the combination of admissions and length of stay is what drives our average daily population, so that's what this graphic reflects. During 2025, our average daily population at DCYC was 86. Again, this is slightly lower, but pretty similar to where we were in 2024. This year, about 38 youth each day, or 44% of the average daily population, was comprised of youth charged in adult court. About 46 youth in the average daily population had charges in juvenile court, and 2 were held for other jurisdictions. Again, looking at it on a monthly basis, in December, we had an average daily population of 80 youth at DCYC with 50 youth in juvenile court, 28 charged as adults, and 2 from other jurisdictions. The next 3 slides here focus on the demographics of youth admitted to DCYC in the annual trends. First looks at our admissions by race and ethnicity. Youth of color are consistently overrepresented in DCYC annual admissions relative to their proportion in Douglas County, as shown on the left-hand side of this slide. During 2025, the racial and ethnic distribution of youth in DCYC remained relatively unchanged from previous years. Black youth accounted for 55% of DCYC admissions, Hispanic youth made up 15%, 5% of youth admitted to detention were Asian, and 2% were Native American. White youth accounted for 23% of admissions to detention. With regard to gender, boys accounted for about 71% of the 637 admissions we had last year, and girls accounted for just under 29%. This is a lot larger than what we've seen in recent years, and the last time that we had this high of a proportion of girls in our admission population was around 2017. And then the final demographic slide that I have for you shows the geographic distribution of DCYC admissions across Douglas County. The darker blue areas on each map indicate higher concentrations of admissions. So consistent with what we saw in 2024, admissions in 2025 were concentrated in eastern Douglas County, particularly in 68111, 68104, 68112, and 68107. So turning now to look just at the month of December, this slide provides an overview of the total population. So last month, DCYC had a low population of 76, an average daily population of 80, and a high population of 83. On the first day of the month, there were 77 youth in detention, and there were 81 youth in detention on the last day. The home program screened 4 youth during December. 1 was referred from probation, the others were referred from the court, and 3 out of those 4 youth were accepted for placement on the home program. There were also 46 releases during the month of December, with an average time to release of 63 days. So last month, 4 youth with charges in adult court were released after an average of 341 days. 13 juvenile court predisposition youth were released after about 73 days in detention. This is a notable increase from what we saw last month, and so I did want to highlight that 3 of the youth who were released originally had their charges in adult court and were transferred to juvenile court, which accounted for a little bit longer lengths of stay for those individuals. There were 3 youth who were admitted while they were on juvenile probation with new charges. They were in detention for an average of 28 days, and the 10 youth who were admitted to detention without new charges in juvenile court were in detention for an average of 47 days. With regard to admissions, there were 49 youth who entered DCYC in December of 2025. 3 were admitted with charges in adult courts, 3 were from other jurisdictions, and 43 had charges in juvenile court. Of those 43 juvenile court youth, 21 were on a predisposition status, 9 received new charges while on probation, and 13 were on probation for reasons other than a new law violation. Those 13 youth without new charges represented 26% of DCYC admissions for the month of December. When we focus just on the 46 Douglas County youth, 8 were admitted on weapons-related offenses. 7 of these were felonies, 1 was a misdemeanor, and I also want to highlight that 2 of these youth also had charges of homicide. 14 other youth were admitted for non-weapon-related felonies, 10 were admitted for non-weapon-related misdemeanors, and 14 were admitted for reasons other than a new offense. Focusing just on the 8 youth with weapons-related charges, 2 were charged in adult court, 5 were admitted on a predisposition status in juvenile court, and 5 picked up new charges while they were on juvenile probation. 4 offenses involved the use of a firearm, 1 involved the use of another type of weapon, and 3 were related to firearm possession. 7 of the 8 weapons-related offenses were felony level. 4 involved the use of a firearm, And underlying offenses or additional charges included assault, firearm possession, terroristic threats, and the homicide as previously mentioned. The 2 youth with felony firearm possession charges also had charges of possessing other weapons. And then the youth who used another type of weapon in the commission of a felony was also charged with homicide. The last youth who had a misdemeanor firearm possession-related offense was also charged with obstructing an officer. With regard to the 14 youth who had other types of felonies, 1 was charged in adult court and 13 were admitted in juvenile court. The types of felonies committed by these youth included theft, drug possession, terroristic threats, robbery, attempt of a Class 2 felony, assault, burglary, and criminal impersonation. We had 10 youth admitted for non-weapons related misdemeanors. All 10 of these youth were in juvenile court. Their misdemeanors included assault, obstruction of an officer, theft, criminal impersonation, and false reporting. And then finally, 29% or 14 of the December 2025 admissions were youth who entered detention for reasons other than a new law violation. And all of these youth were in juvenile court. 1 was on a predisposition status, and the other 13 were all on juvenile probation. 6 were admitted for unlawful absences. 4 were ordered detained by the court. 2 had lost their placements, and the last 2 had violations of probation. 8 of these youth had underlying felony-related offenses, including assault, burglary, theft, and terroristic threats. And the other 6 had underlying misdemeanor offenses, including assault, disorderly conduct, terroristic threats, and unlawful occupancy. This slide shows our population as of last Friday, January 9th. On that day, we had 77 youth in DCYC. 2 were from other jurisdictions, 23 were charged as adults, and 52 were charged in juvenile court. 37 of the juvenile court youth were on probation at the time they were admitted to DCYC, and 24 were on probation without new charges. With regard to the demographics, 91% were youth of color, 83% were male, and 16% or 12 of the youth in detention were state wards. This slide shows how long the Douglas County youth have been in detention as of last Friday. So for the 75 youth in detention on that day, the average length of stay was 143 days, with 12 youth having been in detention for 1 year or longer, and an additional 7 having been at DCYC for longer than 6 months. And then finally, we have some details about youth who have court orders authorizing their release once an appropriate placement is available. So as of yesterday, January 12th, there were 11 youth waiting to be released, 3 of whom were state wards. The average amount of time these youth have been waiting is 32 days, though the average or the days range from 4 to 59 days at the time that these cases were reviewed. With regard to the types of placements that are pending, 7 of the 11 youth were approved for shelter bed placements if those become available. You can see there are many youth who have multiple types of placements approved, and it will just be whichever one is available first. 2 were approved just for group home, and 2 are waiting for placement at the PRTF or the psychiatric residential treatment facility level of care. These youth also have a mixture of underlying felony and misdemeanor related offenses. The felony offenses include burglary, firearm possession, and sexual assault, while the misdemeanors include assault, disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, and theft. I'd be happy to take any questions you have at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Carball. Appreciate the report. We'll go into discussion. We'll start with Commissioner Cavanaugh.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for this. Do we have any idea how many children came through the doors, were admitted in calendar year 2025 to the Douglas County Youth Center? Can you tell us that?
The count of admissions for December was 49.
The total number of children who were admitted to the Douglas County Youth Center in 2025.
It was 521.
500 in the whole year?
Correct.
On that average daily population thing, what's the average daily population today?
So the population yesterday was 77.
77.
Yeah. So do you have the population for today?
Roundy, maybe you could help us here.
77 today as well.
Okay, And the average daily population for calendar year 2025?
Was, I believe, 83.
I'm sorry?
83. 80, excuse me. 80.
82. Thank you. Yeah. The reason I ask is, and this is more style than anything else, some of the graphics, they'll give you like a line graph to a kind of approximate number at the end or a range of numbers at the end. And this particularly will come up in a second on the ethnic background thing. It'd be great if you just said at the front of the page, 82. Or if you said at the front of the page on the minority majority in there, 92, whatever. It's difficult sometimes to get that exact number from these graphs because they don't say 92. They just give you follow to the end of the line. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So for instance, on the race one, which I believe is page 8, you have at the right side the population of Douglas County by race, and you give us percentages. But you don't have the population of Douglas County Youth Center by race. You have to go over there and parse out these lines. You see what I'm saying?
So there is a table down below that has the percentages.
I understand, but if you're going to do same, this is the population of the county. Right next to it should be the population of the youth center, which shows an enormous disparity, does it not?
Understood, yes.
And that's consistent, along with the population of the youth center itself, which is pretty consistent over the years in recent times, despite the fact that we just built a kids jail down the street that has a capacity, I believe, of, do you know the capacity of that?
64.
61.
64?
Really? Well, that's up. I don't know how that has risen, but it was originally designed, I believe, for 54.
That's the operational capacity.
Well,
It's 64
I don't know.
beds.
These numbers keep fluctuating. In any event, we've never reached 64, ever, right? There's never been a population of the Douglas County Youth Center in the last year under 70-something.
Correct.
And back before that, even higher. So we're not getting anywhere close to a usable number for the kids jail, which we've spent millions of dollars on and which is empty. The geography one, which I believe is page 10, shows that of the 28 zip codes in Douglas County, 12 of them account for all the admissions to the Douglas County Youth Center.
10 seconds.
16 of them account for 0 of the admissions to Douglas County Youth Center. I'm just pointing that out as a stark example of how this racial majority among minorities is not only racial, but it's geographic. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from board or public? Commissioner Borgerson?
Thank you for this. On the last page, is that correct that as of today, we have 11 youth just sitting there waiting for placements, or is that number different?
That was
And
as of yesterday
As of
afternoon,
yesterday?
yes.
And so when they sit there, who checks where their case is and, if there's any review to, let's say there's a bed they're going to, but they can't get there for 3 weeks. Is somebody working to see if there's, which probably isn't you to answer this, but is there someone keeping tabs on possible other placements to get that youth moving? Because systemically, that's one of our problems is we're sitting on numbers that don't move because the kids aren't moving. So if that's 11 yesterday, which I suppose it would be close to that today, really, is there a process or someone that will constantly, daily, look at where that youth placement could potentially take place?
I believe those are the probation officers assigned to the case who are in charge of making sure that the placement is found in a timely and appropriate manner.
And so again, we have no control over how often or when, or, And then once they do find a placement, they can just sit there till that placement is open without going and looking for another appropriate placement to move that child faster. Again, not your response to answer, but I'm trying to get at the fact that, again, our numbers haven't moved because we continue to have kids sitting and languishing in our youth center, which is not a good thing. Which again, we as a county don't have control over that youth moving on, which again is in the best interest of that youth and their family. So that's what I wanted to point out. But again, thank you for the report and the work that you do for Douglas County.
Thank you.
Just a quick, simple question, building off of some of the content that Commissioner Borgeson was talking about. In the youth waiting, we see that some have been authorized for shelter, some have been authorized for group home. How do we, can you distinguish between the two? What is the difference between a shelter and a group home per our categorization?
Yeah, so a shelter would be a very short-term, immediate placement for a youth. I believe it's intended to be less than a week. It's just to kind of get the youth stabilized, get them out of the home environment until support services can be put into place. A group home would be a longer-term placement where the youth is in a congregate environment with other youth and there's a structured programming.
And for likely longer, slightly long-term?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Very good. And so I agree with what Commissioner Borgeson was saying in regards to, if they've been authorized to no longer be detained and be placed somewhere else that will be better for them, that's what we want. That's exactly what we want, right? For them to be at that better placement that is no longer detention. There's probably multiple issues leading towards that waiting. I think one of them is clearly lack of immediate placement at a group home or at a shelter, whether that's lack of capacity in the community at different agency partners. I'm not sure, because we do work with these partners in the community. The majority of them, if not all of them, are private nonprofits, right? And so, or private entities, and they do have some say on sometimes on whether they actually choose to receive a youth as well that we're trying to place, we as the system overall, are trying to place in their setting, which sometimes is also an issue that's, because of a youth's maybe charges, sometimes the agencies don't even want to take the youth, which is an issue. So capacity in the community, I think, is something collectively we all need to continue to try to address so that we do have more placements out there that can handle all levels of youth and get them out of detention as soon as they've been authorized to leave detention. With that, I'll ask Commissioner Borgeson.
Thank you. And this may be more of a Rondi question than for you, Abby. So can a youth be reevaluated? And again, I understand it's probation, but say they're just sitting there, which I understand we're providing. We actually have some providers in our audience today working with our youth. So after a certain amount of time, can that youth be reevaluated to have the recommendation by probation changed from whether it be the shelter or group home or whatever the recommendation is, to a different recommendation like going on to the home program? Can that happen? Why that, again, child is just sitting there, not moving, taking up a bed day and space in our youth center? Could they be reevaluated by probation to go to a different setting after a period of time?
I mean, that would be nice if they would do that.
Rondi, can you identify yourself, please?
Rondi Woodard from the Douglas County Youth Center, Superintendent. That would be nice if they would do that, but generally, it seems that after they've decided where they're going, they're waiting on bed days, and they don't tend to come and reevaluate and do those type of things that would allow them to find another placement for them or change the placement that they've already ordered for them to go to. So that's a process that we're not involved in, and that's controlled by the court and probation.
Could there be a person that does that reevaluation to trigger probation to come back and say, you know, just whatever the program is, this child has completed or been through or in the process of this program, and we feel that they need to be reevaluated and a different recommendation be brought to placement. Again, they may not listen to us, but is there such a person that we could have that stays on kind of the case, if you will, to try to move it along faster?
We do have a person in place that right now we're trying to develop a program and try to develop some communication between us and probation with helping them to identify some of the things that we're learning from the youth while they're being detained with us, and some of the goals that they have, and trying to get some of that communication back and forth with them. So we have been working on that, and we do have a person that's on that, and actually that's one of our next steps as to what we're doing at the facility.
Well, and again, to me, just anything and everything we can do to get these children to be moved quicker to what is appropriate, to me makes more sense than, again, just having them sit there. And again, I know they're not just, quote, sitting there, we're providing things for them. But when day one, they were recommended to go to a shelter, but they've had X number of things occur, that shelter may not be the appropriate placement any longer. And so that needs to then be brought back through from probation to the court to say, we're changing our recommendation. This child now can move to or be put on, or whatever the case may be. That makes a lot of sense to me, because what we're doing isn't working for just kids languishing in detention, and that's not good for them. So,
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I would add a quick 2 cents as well. Maybe even if there could be like an informal or formalized threshold of days of waiting, right? For the ones that only wait, 4 or 5 days, not a big deal. But if they're waiting, if they hit a certain threshold of they've been here 20 days waiting, at that point that might trigger a prompt and a report from us on how they've been doing at DCYC during that waiting period of 15, 20 days. And we could report on, they're doing well in their classes, because we do have a school at DCYC. Maybe they're participating with our mental health team and our therapists, and maybe that's going great. So if everything's going well with their treatment plan, their schooling, their behaviors have been great, during that waiting period of 15, 20 days, that might merit, to Commissioner Borgson's point, a change of recommendation where maybe the original recommendation was, a group home setting, whereas maybe if they're doing great for 20 days, 25 days, really they could probably maybe go home at that point on the home program, or some different kind of service, wraparound service at home, if there's a stable guardian to go home to, right? So, just ideas as you further develop kind of that position you were talking about, and the mechanisms for having that increased, enhanced communication with our probation partners at the state level.
Yeah, that's the whole point of having all the community providers in the facility. They're building the relationships currently. So that's why we're in the process of getting that program together, because the truth is we're on the tail end of it. We're getting ready to start to have that meeting with probation, but of course we want to make sure that we have everything in place so that when we present it to them, they're open to, having open conversations about our suggestions.
Thank you. Let me go third round for Commissioner Borgson.
I just have a quick question, Randy. So we make policy for the detention center, though, correct? So we could have a policy that our average length of stay is no longer than 10 days, 12 days, 15, whatever we want to make it. That's a starting point for the policy. And to me, that would then be that probation has to follow that. Am I correct on that? They have to follow our policies. It's our,
But you have to remember, though, we deal with court orders.
right?
So it's based on what the court order states. We can only release someone if there's a court order to release.
Right. But if we say, and the courts know and probation knows, that we're going to say our policy is whatever we decide it is, they can push back on us and tell us. But again, if we're just sitting here letting them call the shots and how long the kid gets to sit there. That's what's happening right now. As we just said, they found a placement, but the kid isn't reevaluated until the bed opens or wherever the placement is open, and then the child moves there. To me, that's not a good policy. We should start by saying, go back and look at what some of our average daily population days were or stays were, and we start our policy saying a child will no longer sit here longer than, whatever, days. Anyway, something to think about, because again, what we're doing now, to me, that's the part that's not working. The systemic parts of the system is not working the way it's in the law or the way it was intended to work. This isn't a place for children, it is a placement for children awaiting their permanent placement. So we need to get to that place, and we're not there yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from board or public on the report? Roscoe?
Good morning. Roscoe Wallace, CEO of Viable Healing, 920 34th Street, Sioux City, Iowa. We usually have these same questions, and I have to be honest today, a lot of it leads back to probation. I've been working with these kids, doing family support with probation, family partner, which is kind of gang intervention. Now they have a thing called community coaching, okay? One of the things that brought me into the youth center is my program of restorative justice and trying to build the relationship. Our organization, when we go into DCYC, we have preachers go in there, we have motivators, we have teachers. We go in to hear from the kids. And that's been so successful. Abby's getting a lot of the data right down that we're collecting. These kids are feeling like they have a voice now to be able to talk to us adults. So my staff don't go in telling these kids anything. We share and we encourage them to share. What has happened in that relationship, we've decreased a lot of violence. We, after being in almost a year, we had a new influx of kids coming around. Those kids were kind of used to the old DCYC way. But we built up enough foundation to where those kids that's been through the program and built up the empathy, understanding the impact, accepting accountability for what they've done, they're starting to stand up and say, hey, this is what we're doing now. So in the course of that, we're recording, which Rondi and them already, they've been recording, but we're doing it as an agency. The kids that are maintaining fours. A 4 in the unit is the best number associated with behavior. You go in some units, nothing but 4s. We've seen and we've turned units around. I'm saying all that because I'm leading to something here. As we built those relationships with the kids and the organizations that's coming in now, some of the newer organizations that's building it, adopt a unit, different things like that, the visiting has went up. We're bringing the community in. The issue is, and the kids know it, the kids are asking for these relationships now. I want to work with him. I want to work with Mr. Roscoe. I want to work with Miss Tamika. They're asking. They're asking for these relationships in the courtroom. I have a staff that goes into court with all of these kids. The judges see them all the time. They'll tell you viable healing is in the courtroom. All of the juvenile judges and adult judges for some of the kids that has been over to adult. These kids are asking, and judges are saying, okay, well, and POs are saying, yes, we'll hook them up. We don't see them. So the connection and the reason we're going in and building that relationship is because we want to build the wraparound. Some of these kids will tell you, I love this, but when I get out, you think you can hold my hand? It's basically what they're saying. These kids are telling us what they need. Kavanaugh, back to the 91%, wouldn't you think with that many minorities, we would have a better shot at some of these kids? And I'm just, that's rhetorical, but
10 seconds.
we would have a better shot at these kids. We know these kids, we're building relationships, but these kids are still going to different programs that they have been before, haven't been successful. So I do believe that probation needs to be in the room. And I've had somewhat of
5 seconds.
Okay, I've had somewhat of an adversarial relationship with them, and I'm trying to build on that. But they have to understand that we have some stake in this thing, and we want to be able to do something also.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Terry Crawford. I am defense counsel for a lot of these kids. I'm also the vice president of the NAACP that addresses 2221 North 24th Street. So I was here before, and I still don't feel like my question has been answered. I have several, and I'll try to be very timely. So my question that I asked before when I was here is, how do we capture a particular population that are either non-English speaking, immigrants, or if there are some competency issues? That's the demographic that I work with just about every single day in the juvenile justice system, and some of those that go into the court system for adults. So I guess I would like to know how we, number one, as a community, address this upstream before they get to the youth center. And then once they get to the youth center, how are we addressing the mental health issues, the competency issues? And here's really why I asked. I had a young person who I believed had a competency issue, not intellectually, but because of where he is developmentally, understanding the system. So I requested a competency evaluation. That competency evaluation was ordered in July, and he was not seen until October at LRC. So he sat at his quote-unquote temporary placement, is how I'd like to look at it, right? Until there was some type of assessment to make a determination as to whether or not he's competent enough to assist in his own defense. We have many young people that come into the youth center that fall into this category. We're not necessarily addressing it in the best way, but I know that they come into the youth center. So I guess my first question is, how do we, number one, address it upstream as a community at large, and then how do we do that through this body, and then also once they arrive at the youth center? My other question is kind of related to that, is these large numbers of majority minority is alarming to me, but not surprising. We know why this happens. We know about the school to prison pipeline. We know about the excessive discipline in the schools as it relates to a particular demographic. And we know how they get into the system. There's no secret about that. Why we are not addressing that is, I guess, the million-dollar question as to how this huge percentage of minorities land in our youth center. So I would really like to know, what are the collaborative efforts? What are some of the cooperative things? I've heard probation mentioned a lot, and I've been at these meetings. I don't know how often they come, but I haven't seen them very often. I'd love to be able to have those conversations, because there is a way to bring those numbers down, and they've done it in other cities. So we have a blueprint to follow. We seem to be struggling with that in Omaha. Those are all my comments.
Thank you. I'll follow up with you, ma'am, on a few thoughts I had, but probably longer than the 60 seconds we had. So we'll follow up and talk some more. Hey, good morning. Come on up.
Good morning. My name is Tamika Meese. I am the Executive Director of North Omaha Community Partnership, located at 2406 Fowler Avenue. NOCP is a service provider for probation. We don't get very many referrals through probation. And we are also a partner that goes into DCYC to work with the youth. And right now we are assigned Unit 9, which is the highest risk youth in the detention center. And essentially we're boots on the ground. We're in there, we're developing relationships, coming in there. We do go every other week and visit with the youth. I have 4 to 5 staff members whose titles are family support specialist and community youth coach that goes in and they work with the youth, and then they also work with the families. And what we are finding is once they get to the point where they're being released, there's no supportive services available right away. So I have one youth right now who is 17. He'll be 18 next month. He is in court right now. He was released after doing 13 months at YRTC in Kearney. He was released on October 29th and then rearrested on October 31st because he was in a stolen vehicle. When speaking with this young man, he explained to me that when he came home, he immediately felt his back was against the wall. He came home with no utilities, no food. And he said, Miss Tamika, I just went and did what I knew how to do to survive. No supportive services in place. And he had juvenile court yesterday where they're not willing to drop his violation of the probation, and he's in adult court today. And the county attorney's office has already stated if he gets a slap on the wrist for being in a stolen vehicle in adult court, we're going to propose to send him to YRTC in Lincoln. Either way it goes, he has to be released back into society. He wants to change. He has 8 more credits until he graduates. He has goals, he has ambitions. We have been talking about this since we've been working with him in November. He just needs a chance. His family needs a chance. And so the type of services that we provide at NOCP with our Blueprint program is that we work with the youth in building them up, educational-wise, providing them with a mentor, helping them obtain, any goals that they have with continuing education, trades, or certifications. And we work with their family to either stabilize that home or to maintain stabilization through our wraparound services. We partner with Charles Drew for behavioral and mental health and therapy services. All of this is needed. We have to address this holistically. And so what I'm finding with probation, respectfully, is that they are not using the new providers. And I get this all the time. We don't know you. We don't know who you are. So they use who they're used to using for all of the services and the programs, and we wonder why these youth are sitting here waiting. They're waiting because the new resources are not being tapped into. They are waiting because you have larger entities that have insurance barriers, and they say this child does not fit our program. They are a high risk. And this could be a child that has not committed a violent act. They were just out stealing cars. And so what are we going to do with these youth? How are we going to really, truly partner with probation? Because a lot of this does fall on probation. And meeting after meeting that I come to, we identify the issue. Why isn't probation in the room? Why isn't probation being held accountable? I want to work together as a partner, but I am going to be very transparent, and I'm going to call it like it is. They need to step their game up because we're losing. We are losing, and these kids are experiencing trauma the more and more days that they are kept in DCYC. This is not a neutral place.
That's time, Ms. Tamika.
And so that is my point. We have to somewhere along the way, we got to hold probation accountable and get them in the room, and let's truly partner so that we can see results instead of ending up in the same spot every month. Thank you.
Thank you for coming today. Other comments or questions? Larry?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm here today basically to reset our county board to the people's business. This is where citizens are supposed to be able to come to address their government. Now, you can break the rules as president because you make the rules, but you're breaking the rule again today. This was a report. Define report for me, because these were all presentations, not reports, not citizen comments. They were not limited to 3 minutes. They were not interrupted like I get to be, and they were not kicked out for being out of order. Why do you let them do presentations during an item on the agenda that's for a report? Why do you not interrupt them when they go over 3 minutes?
It's 4 minutes. Everybody gets 4 minutes.
Reset the rules to work for the citizen that is supposed to be able to be down here to tell you about those things and to challenge you on that. This is our building, not yours, Roger. Thank you.
They're citizens as well, and this is also their building. So, thank you. Other comments or questions on the reports? Pastor, you good? All right. If not, again, Director Ron Woodard and Dr. Carball, we thank you for the reports, and we're going to move forward on our agenda here. Under HR Committee, we had weekly personnel report from Civil Service as presented. We do have a need for executive session today for the purposes of litigation, legal advice, and contract negotiations. Was anything added? Oh, Teresa and Patrick? I don't think so. For those 3 purposes, do I have a motion and a second? So moved. Motion by Morgan, second by Rogers. Please vote on that.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. The board will now go into executive session for the purposes of litigation, legal advice, and contract negotiations.
Motion to reconvene and adjourn by Commissioner Borgeson, second by Commissioner Morgan. Motion passes 6-0. Commissioner Rogers was absent. We're adjourned at 11 a.m.